Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we fall, of healing, a circle of friends, some place where we can be free. Words of Starhawk. Good morning. Welcome to Cross Street Chapel's Sunday worship. I'm grateful for those who have been able to join us in person, as well as those watching us online. We're all participating in the creation of a community, even if we're unable to sort of see each other or experience each other's presence. Do know the relationship continuing between all people who are in this service, including those who perhaps will be watching it in the future. So we begin with these words on community and on our creating a community. And I hope that whatever it is that you have come seeking, that this community, that if you've come with sorrows that are burdening you, that you can share those and you can feel held by our community. That if you've come jubilant and excited with joy and laughter, that you can feel able to share that with this community. And it will rejoice with you. That perhaps you have some inspiring words that you want to share, or you have come in search of inspiring words. I hope they will be found. And as always, I hope that even if you just come looking for a chance to rest with the divine, I hope you will find it here, as well, as I often say, with a warm community. To symbolize our warm community, we turn to the lighting of our chalice. Today we have the words of the Reverend Maureen Caloran. It matters that we remember that each one of us walks this chilly world in some way as a stranger. It matters that we remember that the purpose of the community is to welcome the stranger in from the cold. May the flame of this chalice mark the reality that when we welcome the stranger, we open our hearts to the making of a friend. In the light of this common flame, may we bear witness to our values and recommit ourselves to the dream that one day the world and our hearts within it may be whole. People can feel cold in the sunny weather. Never forget that. We join together as well in the recitation of our covenant. For those who are listening online, it will appear on the screen. For those here in the congregation, it's in your order of worship. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. And I've often spoken recently of concentric circles, that we begin with this sort of universal call to worship, which is then to our own Unitarian tradition, which is then brought into our own ritual here at Cross Street. Finally, turning to ourselves into a time of personal prayer. Beautiful serendipities, these cherished coincidences which have shaped our lives, providing a lattice of meaning which supports our lives. Unseen, unknown, hidden among the mundane and unappreciated, which peak at those quiet moments of divine revelation. May we recognize what has brought us together today. Not merely our physical journeys, extended appreciations, drawn over many reasons of many visits. May we appreciate the subtle steering that leads us to what is important, that helps us to build our character, challenges us through the rapids, and protects us in the harbor. May this place be a harbor for those who have not known rest. May this place be a rapid for those wishing to challenge themselves and explore life's opportunities. For those who are lost, may it be a lighthouse. And above all, may our vessel be sturdy, strong enough to bear the weight of diverse opinion, and grand enough to hold in it that common humanity. Amen. We turn now to our first hymn, which is in the Green Book, number 17, Song of Thanksgiving by Edwin Theophil Guerra. We now turn to a couple readings, the first being Black Ants by the Reverend Fiona Heath, and then it's followed by Ecclesiastical Pretensions, which is a fantastic name for a reading, by the Reverend J.H. Tom. Many years that had its share of domestic wildlife. Squirrels and raccoons lived in walls. Our kitchen was home to black ants. I tried to deter them in unsuccessful, non-toxic ways and would sweep them away or step on them when I saw them. One day, cleaning up our round kitchen table, I saw a black ant perched near the edge. I raised my hand to sweep it off when I realized that the ant was cleaning its face and its antenna, just like my cat's, stroking its antenna like a miniature black panther. This kinship with my beloved cats astonished me, and I sat on a chair and watched the ants for at least 5 minutes. Black, with delicate legs and antennae, the ant was gorgeous. Days after, I watched the ants trundle along the countertops, gently shooing them out of the way, lifting them out of places that I didn't want them. If they fell in the sink, as I did the dishes, I fished them out and set them curled up on the counter. After a time during which I was sure they were dead, they would turn and wander off. Ant resurrection. I haven't intentionally hurt an ant since. Black Ants. And now Ecclesiastical Pretensions by J.H. Tom. The contrast in temper and in method between a church that aims at unity of spirit and a church that aims at uniformity of opinion carries us to the deepest principles of the Christian life. The one is always dropping salutary truths. The other is always denouncing what she takes for dangerous errors. The one is only anxious for the state of the affections, their purity, mercy, sensibility. The other is always dismayed and troubled by the varieties and irregularities of religious habit, worship, and thought. The one lets fall a heavenly seed into the soul and is satisfied if it takes root and grows. The other is not satisfied whilst anything else appears above the soil, though it has no natural decay, and must be torn forth with living roots out of the bleeding heart. The one cares only for the leaven that is working in our nature. The other cares only for exact conformity to some. The one is a teacher and a fertilizer. The other is a disputer and a formalist. Christ was emphatically a teacher. He never disputed. They took root would quietly supplant error. He was not afraid of errors, if only healing truths and fertile affections could be introduced alongside them, side by side. He solved all the controversies of his time, not by giving judgment between them, some comprehensive principle that underlay and embraced them both, and reconciled the disputants in one wider view. Ecclesiastical Pretensions by J.H. Tom. Language occasionally calcifies prejudice. Words from the past, from beyond our own sort of history, they contain elements of bigotry, misogyny, racism, homophobia. Not all language, obviously, but particular expressions which in sort of later to be hurtful, to be derogatory. And most of, after time, some of these terms and expressions are rejected. At other times, the expressions are sort of diluted, or the sort of significance, the history of their meaning gradually ebbs away. How one sort of responds to these expressions once they learn about sort of their horrific origins is a sort of significant detail for the individual to explore. In mind, when I was out walking with Tom earlier this week, particularly the term vandalism. The Vandals, the North European people who sacked Rome in 455, of course, have come to be referenced a millennium later with the term vandalism, taken to be sort of willful destruction. So there's a park that near where I live. It's a decent size. It has this large field and playground with tennis courts. As one enters to the left, there's a bowling green. It's fenced away, presumably to keep the vandals out. Clearly better fortification than Rome, as the grass remains immaculate in this bowling green. The field houses are intact. And you can see the markings on the outside. You can see the weeds growing up alongside this tall fence. Most people don't know that there's a path that you can sort of, circumnavigate the whole of the bowling green. But Tom, of course, being the astute observer of nature he is, insisted that we trek it one time. And on that journey, I spied a bench that had been vandalized. It had been uprooted, shall we say. It had been presumably screwed to the ground at some point, some meters away, and our would-be barbarians managed to decouple it, to drag it to another bench, and to set it up as a conversation nook where people could face one another. Now, to clarify, I'm not encouraging needless destruction, but there was a certain poetic impression left by this image. When it was originally stationed, one would only have this sort of partial view, if you could call it that, of the bowling green. They would have all the weeds that were sprouting up. They would have had this really tall, thick fence blocking their view. I can only imagine that the benches existed before the fence. Anyone would put a bench facing a fence of such oppressive nature. It's not much of a view at all. Yes, kept in their original positions, the benches would have been very odd indeed. At some point, of course, the fence went up, likely, I suspect, with the reasoning that no one was actually using those benches. But some people are now using those benches, hence their relocation. They've observed the scene and they've changed it. They've made it anew. They've given it a new meaning that works for them. This scene, though witnessed very briefly, has rested with me all week, encouraging me to think about our space, our physical space, our spiritual space, our congregational and communal space. And I'm not advocating vandalism of the chapel. We've had enough of that through our history. But I do think we need to rest with some questions. And as I noted, not just physical space. Those questions of how welcoming are we? Have we felt sort of so numbed by the benches in our existence, seeing them not being used, that we've built these tall walls to protect ourselves, but which ultimately keep people out? And there are people who need to get in. This world is full of hurt people who are looking for sanctuaries, for a space where they can ask those deep questions. They come with pain and trauma and need to be held and cared for, spiritually nourished, so that they can return to what is often a bitter and angry world, to carry on for one more week. One other word that has accumulated a history is incel. Some of us may have come to the term for the first time this weekend, following the shooting in Plymouth, which left 6 dead. Incel means involuntarily celibate, and it refers to an extreme ideology of misogyny. There have been numerous deadly attacks through the past decade and longer committed by people holding this ideology. They can also often harbor racist, Islamophobic, homophobic beliefs. And because of this intense hatred of the world, and the sexist systems that preserve inequality, the misogynistic element of these acts often goes unreported. The men who hate women, which helps to reveal the intersection of these beliefs. But like I say, there's a history to the term. The term incel was actually coined by a woman known only as Alana back in 1997, who identified herself as an incel. She started an online community of people who had difficulty connecting in deep relationships. It was a supportive group of men, women, and non-binary people who shared their methods for engaging in the world, in what for them was a challenging world. And it was successful. She was quick to shut out people who came, who expressed anger because they felt spurned, who felt vindictive. The group was about finding the best in us, finding the best in each of them. Like I say, it was from the start a very supportive community, and because of that was quite successful in helping address sort of challenges in their lives. Because of this success, of course, many of the people who had originally identified as incels then left the group, including Alana herself. And in her absence, the space was then filled up by those people who spoke hatred, who spoke violence, particularly violence against women. Like the weeds next to the bowling green, they shut out the good and the decent. The view was blocked. When I first I included Fiona Heath's reading Black Ants, and I found since then to be actually quite challenging. Perhaps in the same way that Wisława Szymborska's poem Psalm deals with the concept of borders. How leaky are our borders, as daily sand sifts from country to country. Both poems can be seen as primarily breaking down our barriers. And that isn't bad. I'm not arguing that this is an incorrect or an unhelpful interpretation. However, consider that last line of, I haven't intentionally hurt an ant since. So we might argue that although many of these walls and edifices have been built by humanity are destructive, there are some boundaries, some human rights that exist, seeking to care for the livelihood of one another, to preserve life and dignity. Words sometimes calcify prejudice, but they don't have to. Hold on to those words of John Tom. Let us be anxious for the state of one another's affections, their purity, their mercy, their sensibility. Let us try to let fall a heavenly seed into the soul and be satisfied when it takes root. Let us care for the leaven that is working in our and others' natures, not expecting conformity to some pattern, embracing the diversity that exists in this world. Doing so decalcifies our language. Amen. We come now to our second hymn in the Green Book, number 180, This Old World. You now have a chance to share your joys and your sorrows, your trials and your triumphs. If you want to share these publicly, please come forward, light a candle, and do speak into the microphone so those will be able to participate. If you're online, please type into the chat box and I will read them out and light a candle for you. You are welcome to light a candle in silence. And as always, if you wish to remain seated, know that your presence here is enough. And I wanted to begin by lighting a candle for Janet, our lettings administrator. Janet this past week tested positive for COVID. She was unwell a couple days ago, but said yesterday that she was feeling much better. So we keep her in our thoughts and prayers and do hope for a full recovery.
How happy I will be if the phrase in the hymn we've just sung, face to face, can come to pass as soon as possible.
This is to say thanks for having the chance to be face to face with a dear friend who lives at the other end of the country, but who joins us often online. So if you're listening, Lynn, thank you.
For all the victims of misogyny and gendered violence, for those in Afghanistan, and for all words here spoken and those that remain silently in our hearts. Let us turn now to a time of prayer with these words of the Reverend Virginia P. Knowles. Spirit of creative good, be with us when we are afraid. Grant us the courage to do what we have to do. Grant us the peace that passes understanding. When we fail to find courage or peace and compassion for our sisters and brothers and all who also fail. May we sometimes win the prizes that we fight for, and may we then know both pride and compassion. May we be open to the candor of old age and to the freshness of childhood. May we give good memories. May we receive good memories. May we have faith, O good. May we and be love and forgiveness unto each other. Amen. And so we enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. A few notices before we conclude our service. If you're in need of pastoral care, please write chapel.org.uk. Provide a reading or some other element of the service. And if you have just joined us, you can join our mailing list, again, by writing to me at minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. We're grateful as well for any donations that can assist them to donate online at justgiving.com/crossstreetchapelmanchester, which is all spelled out in all one word. Or if you email me for details, we can set you up with a standing order. For those who are here in person, we have a retiring collection, and we're grateful for any donations, like I say, to assist the mission of the chapel. We have an envelope scheme as well to collect gift aid if you are a UK taxpayer. Also, for those in attendance, we will be having tea and coffee and a little bit more, and that will make more sense in a few minutes, after the service in the Percival Suite. So we come now to our final hymn, John Andrew Story's Undying Echoes, hymn number 292. Thank you to Catherine for the IT. We're going to thank Laura for the tea and coffee, and thank you to Peter for greeting this morning, and to ask you soon. So thank you. There's, of course, always one more thank you. Well, there's two more thank yous. But before I get on to that, I invite Catherine and Adam to come forward, perhaps with a few words.
So Cross Street Chapel has a long history of celebrating with music, and celebrating musicians. And one musician that we are celebrating, who is leaving us for Austria in the coming few weeks, which I know has been rather a nightmare with what's been going on to sort out. And I very much salute your finding this excellent position that you're moving to, and while you've been at Cross Street, you certainly have provided us with some wonderful music and also some great dollops of the unexpected and the experimental. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Aaron, and we have
and I just wanted to say thank you and good luck on behalf of the choir, and for just doing anything that we threw at you without any notice, which seems to be a forte of yours, of just like that. And on behalf of your biggest fan, Thomas, who gets every bit of the humour in your music. Yeah. So hopefully we'll still be treated to that online. But yes. But thank you, we will miss you.
Thank you, Aaron, for sharing your talents and your life with us these past several years. We really do wish the best for you. And I know there's the old worn expression of don't be a stranger. But we will continue to look on you with pride and are grateful for your time here. Thank you. And of course, in our service, we thank all of you for creating and sharing worship today. We close with the words of Joy Cowley. And if I go into another area and walk a mile or two with someone else, I return as a larger being. The love of my own road is deepened. The appreciation of other roads is widened. And I am blessed in the knowledge that all roads lead to God. Amen. Go in peace.